Welcome back to the Pro Ticker podcast. It's Friday morning, which means we're covering major financial magazine headlines. Today is October 25th, 2024, and, the markets are always buzzing, but today we're going to take a deep dive and go beyond the headlines.
We do have a fascinating mix for you today. Everything from a billion-dollar casino gamble in Chicago to some questionable moves in German banking. We'll even get to Elon Musk's political spending spree, some hacked Trump emails, and even Volkswagen's surprising hybrid strategy.
Okay, well, first up, let's head to the Windy City. Bloomberg's reporting that Bally's is building a $1.8 billion casino right downtown in Chicago. Now, you'd think construction on a project this big would be going smoothly, but it almost hit a snag because of the design.
Yeah, it did. And this is where things get interesting. We're not just talking about, your typical slots and poker tables. Bally's wants a full-on resort, and that initial design just wasn't cutting it. That's when their landlord, Gaming and Leisure Properties, Inc. stepped in and said, whoa, hold on, we need to rethink this.
The landlord redesigning a casino. That's not something you see every day. I mean, usually they're just focused on collecting the rent, right? So what's the story here?
Well, you got to understand the unique position of these casino landlords, or REITs as they're known. Gaming and Leisure and their rival VC properties, they own a ton of casino real estate. The problem is there just aren't that many casinos to buy up anymore. So they're getting creative.
So instead of just being a passive landlord, they're taking a more active role, shaping these developments, hoping to maximize their returns, huh?
Exactly. Gaming and Leisure saw the potential for this Chicago casino to be a real moneymaker, but only if it was done right. So they scrapped that original small hotel idea and decided to build a 500-room tower with incredible views of the city and the lake. They integrated parking, moved restaurants to better showcase the riverfront, every little detail geared toward wowing the guests.
Sounds like they really went all out. But anyone who follows the casino world knows Chicago has a really steep casino tax rate, and the competition is fierce. So this whole project is a huge gamble for Bally's and Gaming and Leisure.
Absolutely. They're betting big that this redesign will pull in locals and tourists. They want to make this casino a real gem in Chicago's entertainment scene. And Bally's already has a temporary casino there, which has been exceeding expectations, especially in building that initial customer database, which gives them some reason for optimism. But yeah, this is a high-stakes game for sure.
And it looks like this could just be the beginning. The CEO of Gaming and Leisure has hinted that this is just the start of a beautiful relationship with Bally's, potentially leading to even more billion-dollar deals in New York and Vegas. What a power couple.
It's a fascinating development and one worth watching closely. Now, speaking of intriguing partnerships, let's jump across the pond to Germany, where things are getting a bit shady in the banking world. Bloomberg reports that Jefferies Financial Group has quietly amassed over 5% voting rights in Commerzbank, which is one of Germany's biggest banks. The financial world is trying to figure out what's going on.
It does feel like there's some mystery there. 5% may not sound like a lot, but in finance, it's a big deal. So what's the motive? Is Jefferies planning on taking over?
Well, it's not quite that simple. This move by Jefferies is likely tied to another big player, UniCredit SPA. They hold a 21% stake in Commerzbank. Most of that is through derivatives.
Derivatives, okay. For those of us who don't speak Wall Street, can you explain what those are and how they play into all of this?
Sure. Simplest terms, a derivative is basically a contract that gets its value from another asset, like a stock. UniCredit is basically using these derivatives to control a huge chunk of Commerzbank without actually owning all those shares. They're hedging their bets, protecting themselves if Commerzbank's stock price takes a nosedive, and Jefferies is acting as a shield in this whole complex maneuver.
So UniCredit has this huge financial stake in Commerzbank, but they say it's not a takeover. They're just protecting their investment.
That's what they say, but it gets more interesting. This isn't the first time UniCredit has done something like this. They've used Barclays and Bank of America for similar moves in the past, and they've even asked to increase their stake in Commerzbank to almost 30%. So the real question is, are they really just going to be passive? Or is there something bigger going on?
It feels like there are a lot of unanswered questions and just a ton of money floating around. Made your head spin.
Absolutely. And from the complex world of European banking, let's switch gears to the equally unpredictable world of Elon Musk. CNBC is reporting that the Tesla CEO got a whopping $26 billion richer, all in one day. Tesla's stock had its best day since 2013. which made Musk's net worth just absolutely skyrocket.
$26 billion in a day. Not a bad payday. What happened? Did Tesla find a gold mine under their gigafactory or something?
Not quite, but it's close. Tesla exceeded their earning expectations, and Musk said on their earning call that he's projecting strong growth through 2025. Investors went crazy, which drove up the stock price, and yeah, that helped Musk's already massive fortune.
Here's the thing, though. We all know Tesla's stock has been, well, a bit of a roller coaster ride this year, lagging behind the market. So this sudden jump feels a bit like whiplash.
Yeah, you're right. Investing in Tesla is not for the faint of heart. You got to remember, so much of Musk's net worth is tied to Tesla's success. His other companies, SpaceX, X, and XAI, are all impressive, but Tesla is still the bedrock of his financial empire.
Speaking of empires, Musk has been making headlines for more than just Tesla. He's been putting millions into a pro-Trump PAC and even offering money to voters who signed their petition. That stirred up quite a bit of controversy.
It's a bold move for sure, one that could have a real impact on the election. But it also makes you think about the influence billionaires have in politics and the potential for conflicts of interest. And what does all this mean for Tesla and their shareholders?
Right, because are these political activities really good for Tesla and its investors? A lot of them are worried about Musk mixing business with politics.
It's a valid concern, and we also have to consider the legality of all of it. Some legal experts say that voter sweepstakes idea could be breaking campaign finance laws. It's messy, and there could be a lot of fallout. We'll definitely be keeping our eye on it. Now, from the world of tech and politics, let's move to a story that feels like a spy thriller.
Yeah, this one's a wild one. Reuters is reporting that Donald Trump's campaign emails were hacked, and they're showing up in some strange places.
Yeah, it's been a strange journey for these emails. At first, major news outlets didn't seem to care about them, but now they're popping up on the website of a Democratic pay, American muckrakers, and even on Substack. It's quite a twist.
You can't make this stuff up. And the irony here is too perfect. The hackers are thought to be Iranian, and they're being accused of election interference by the same guy who once told Russia to hack his opponent's emails. What a plot twist.
It's a classic case of he said, she said, both sides are spinning it. The Trump campaign's calling it an attempt to create chaos, and the PSC is saying it's for the public good.
So who's telling the truth? It's
Yeah.
impossible to say right now. And get this, American muckrakers say they have even more leaks.
Yeah.
What else do they have? It's enough to keep the whole political world on edge.
It really is. And from political intrigue to a surprising twist in the auto industry, let's talk about Volkswagen's new Scout Motors brand. CNBC reported that Scout, which was supposed to be all about EVs, is now, get this, embracing plug-in hybrids.
Plug-in hybrids.
Yeah.
But I thought Scout was going to be this cutting-edge EV brand taking on Tesla and Rivian. What's with the sudden change? Did they hit a roadblock?
Well, it seems like getting people to buy EVs has been harder than they thought. The economics are tough, and there's just not as much demand as they predicted. So Scout's CEO decided to hedge their bets by offering a range extender for people who aren't ready to go fully electric.
Range extender. That sounds interesting. Can you explain how this hybrid thing works?
Sure. Scout's first vehicles are going to be a full-size pickup and a big SUV. Both will have an EREV option. That stands for Extended Range Electric Vehicle. Basically, they'll have electric motors and a battery, but they'll also have a regular gas engine.
So they're not fully electric. Sounds like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. So how does that gas engine work with everything?
You can think of it like a backup generator. When the battery is low, the engine starts up to power the electric parts of the car, giving it a range of over 500 miles. It helps people who are still nervous about only having an electric car, especially if there aren't many charging stations where they live.
So it's like a safety net if you go on a road trip and can't find a place to plug in.
Ah.
That's pretty clever. But what does this mean for their finances? We know that EV startups are known for spending a lot of money.
You're right about that. Scout is hoping to be profitable within a year of starting to make their cars, which is something very few EV startups have been able to do. This hybrid approach might be how they pull it off, letting them appeal to more customers and navigate that tricky EV market.
It's a bold strategy, that's for sure. Especially with so much competition in the electric truck and SUV world. There are already price wars happening. And that pressure is only going to get worse.
Exactly. It'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Scout's decision to go with hybrids could be what makes them successful, or it could backfire.
Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be wild. Before we move on, what are your thoughts so far? What's grabbing your attention?
I'm I'm really intrigued by Elon Musk jumping into politics. It's fascinating, but kind of scary too. Someone with that much money and influence trying to change politics, well, it makes you wonder.
For sure. Makes you think about the role billionaires should have in politics. Could there be conflicts of interest? What does this mean for companies like Tesla and their shareholders? If their CEO is spending his time and money on a candidate, it's a can of worms, really.
It is, and legally speaking, will anything happen with this whole sweepstakes thing he's doing? Speaking of repercussions, though, these hacked Trump emails could have some serious consequences.
Totally. Who knows what's in those emails, right? We've only seen a little bit, and it's already causing chaos. Could affect the election, ruin reputations, expose campaign secrets, who knows?
And it shows just how dangerous cyber attacks are, especially in
Yeah.
politics. It's like a wake-up call. Nobody's safe from these attacks, not even Trump with all his security.
It's a scary thought.
Uh,
Okay, we've covered casinos, banks, electric cars, politics, hackers. What else is interesting in the financial world today?
well, the big financial leaders are meeting in Washington right now for the International Monetary Fund and World Bank meetings. And guess what everyone's talking about according to Bloomberg?
Let me guess. The U.S. election. Seems like that's all anyone can talk about these days.
Yep. Everyone's nervous about Trump possibly coming back. Some officials are even comparing it to global risks like wars and inflation.
I get why they'd be worried. If Trump wins, it could change everything about U.S. economic policy.
Mm.
And that would affect the whole world. Trade wars, currencies going crazy, international agreements changing. It's a lot to think about.
Exactly. Trump's already talked about putting huge tariffs on China and other countries. Could start a global trade war and mess up supply chains. And we can't forget how skeptical he is of organizations like the IMF and the World Bank.
Yeah, it's a very different approach compared to what we have now. The current administration's all about working together in diplomacy. All this uncertainty is making things stressful for world leaders who are trying to plan for the future.
It's like they're all holding their breath, waiting to see what happens in November. It's not just the leaders either. Investors are freaking out too. They're trying to figure out what the election will do to the markets, and it's making things volatile.
So what does all this mean for the average person? What should we be watching out for?
One thing is China's economic data. Bloomberg had some interesting things to say about that. Apparently, Xi Jinping's stimulus package isn't getting a lot of love. A lot of experts are saying they need to do more to get people spending and fix their economy.
So even with the rate cuts and extra cash and housing support, people don't think it's enough to get China back on track.
Not really. It feels like they're waiting to see what happens with the U.S. election before they do anything big.
Because if Trump wins and puts those tariffs in place, they're going to need a bigger plan to deal with the damage.
Exactly. It's like a dangerous game where both sides are daring the other to back down. The whole world's watching. And whoever gives in first will impact global growth and stability.
Well, it's all connected, isn't it? The election, China, global trade. It's like one giant web. If you pull one thread, the whole thing shakes.
It is. We live in a complicated world, that's for sure. What happens in one place can affect everyone. It's more important than ever to know what's going on and really think about how things will affect our financial future.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the main takeaway? What do you want listeners to remember today?
Financial news isn't just numbers and data. It's about strategy, power, and adapting to a world that's constantly changing. Whether it's a casino landlord redesigning things, a European bank making sneaky moves, or a tech CEO mixing business and politics, it's all a reminder that the financial world is full of surprises.
And knowing what's going on is so important. There's so much uncertainty right now, from elections to the economy changing. What bold moves are you going to make? Something to think about this weekend.
For sure. Think critically, question everything, and stay informed. It's a real power struggle, isn't it? The US and China, each one waiting for the other to make a move. You can really feel the tension.
And it's not just something we can watch from the sidelines. This whole economic battle has a real impact on all of us. It affects everything, from how much we pay for groceries to what happens to our retirement savings.
Exactly. So since we're talking about uncertainty and risk, let's get back to Volkswagen and their choice to go with plug-in hybrids for their Scout Motors brand. Remember, they were all about electric vehicles at first, but now they're kind of playing it safe, offering that range extender option for those who aren't sold on going fully electric.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially with all the hype around EVs. But I
Yeah.
get why they're doing it. Getting people to switch to EVs has been harder than they thought, and it's expensive too.
Right. And we don't really know how people will react. A lot of people are still worried about not having enough range, especially in places where there aren't a lot of charging stations. With the hybrid approach, Scout can get more customers, the EV fans, and the people who aren't quite ready to go all electric.
It's like they're building a bridge, between the cars we have now and the all-electric future, a way to help people make the switch slowly.
I like that, a bridge. And for their business, it's smart. They can still sell to people who want gas-powered cars while they learn more about EVs and build up their charging network.
And don't forget about the competition. There are so many electric trucks and SUVs now. Big car companies and new startups all want a piece of the action. We're already seeing price wars. It's going to get even more intense.
You're right, the stakes are high. Scout going with hybrids could be what makes them successful. It lets them stand out and attract different types of buyers.
Well, as we wrap up today's deep dive, one thing's clear. The financial world is full of surprises. Billion-dollar casinos, political games, new car strategies. It's always changing.
Definitely. But one thing's for sure, the more you know, the better. Understanding what's happening in the financial world helps us handle challenges and make the most of opportunities.
So this weekend, take some time to think about everything we talked about today. Be critical, question things, and stay informed. Who knows what the markets will do next week, right?
That's the fun part, isn't it? You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more headlines from those big financial magazines.